everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and in this video what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about authentication with Express, EJS, and Mongo. So in my previous video where I just talked about sessions, where I talked about Express sessions, I used this template, EJS Mongo Supreme, and I just kind of cloned it right from the GitHub. I have since added this as one of the templates you can clone from my Merced spin-up tool to make life a little bit easier. So I'm going to use that. Okay, so I want to use npx Merced spin-up. That's my tool that has all my templates built in. I'm going to use the @latest flag so that way it uses the newest version of the tool. And what I want to do, Merced spin-up, then I'm going to name the template. And the template I want is called EJS. I think actually it's Express EJS Mongo Supreme. Okay, and then I'm going to put it in a folder called Auth Practice. Okay, it's asking me if I want to use the newest version. Yes, I do. And it does the thing. And notice no new folder got created, which means I didn't write the right name. Oh no, it did get created. It's right there. I just can't see. So cd auth practice. Okay, and then again I have all this stuff in there. So I'm going to do what I normally do, npm install. Then I need to create my .env, so I'll just rename the template .env to .env. I'll just use all the default values because it doesn't really matter. I have a local Mongo server running, so I can just use that localhost 27017. Just give a second for all those sirens to go by. I live on a busy hospital route. But what I'm going to do in this video is we're going to actually build user authentication. We're going to build the ability for users to log in or create an account, log in, and be able to, and then on top of that, be able to say that certain pages can't be accessed unless the user's logged in. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So the first step is we need to create a user model. Okay, so I'm going to head over to my models and create a user model because that's kind of necessary. And actually, even before I do that, I know that I'm going to need to encrypt user passwords. So let me install the library I need for that, and that's called npm install bcrypt.js. There's also just bcrypt. Now, they're the same thing, bcrypt and bcrypt.js. They work the same way, same functions, everything's the same. The difference is bcrypt is always going to be the sort of the newest version. The issue is that bcrypt, the library is actually compiled when you install it. So it's actually being compiled from like C++ code or whatever it's written in. The problem with that is if you don't have the right libraries on your computer, it might not be able to successfully install it, and you'll get this like, there's a GYP error, which is generally when you get like when you install a node library and you get this like GYP compile error, it just means you don't have the libraries on your computer to compile this particular source code. And that generally puts you down a long rabbit hole of Google searching, trying to figure out what it is that your computer needs to compile the thing. So, which can be very painful. So to avoid this whole problem, I'm going to use bcrypt.js, which is pre-compiled, meaning it's already been compiled. So I'm able to just grab it and it works. Only issue is that it's not necessarily always the latest version because it's not compiled like every day. So that's why I installed bcrypt.js, not bcrypt. But you could literally install either one and it will do the exact same thing. It will play the exact same role. Now, so now that we have bcrypt, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new model, new user model. So we'll say, hey, user.js. That's going to be our user model. Okie dokie. And in that user model, we need to bring in the const schema model. I'm going to bring it from our already existing, because the way this particular template is built, I already have a connection that's inside a connection in the DB folder, and that exports a connected version of Mongoose. So I'm going to use that version. So const schema model equals dot dot slash db slash connection. Okay, so I'm just going to use the already exported and connected mongoose object that's being exported from the connection.js. So const schema model, wonderful. So with that, we create our user schema. Okay, and I'm going to keep it real simple. New schema. A user should really just at its bare minimum has two properties: a username, which is a string, so type string, and should be unique, and should be required. So you shouldn't have two users with the same username. Okay, and then they should have a password, which is also going to be a string. Type string. And doesn't have to be unique, because that would suck if everyone had the right, like, their own unique password. And some people just really have their passwords that they're attached to, but it is required. True. Okie dokie. So that's set. Now we'll create the model. Const user equals model. It's the user model, and we're going to use the user schema. And then we export module.exports the user model. Okay, I'll save this so that way Prettier cleans it up a little bit, but there you go. That's the user model. That's it. I mean, you could also add like email, phone number, anything else you want to track per user, but at its purest core, this is the information you need for a user, unless you want to do something other than a password somehow. Cool. So that's all well and good. Now what's going to happen, okay, is I'm going to need a controller. I need to create 4 routes. I need to create a route that's going to give me a page that has a form to create a user, and then I need a route to handle the submission of that form. I'm going to need a route to give me a page with a form to log in as a user, and I'm going to need a route for when that form submits. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is, let me just take a look at what I got here. I got my home router. So I'm going to create a new router called I'll call it my auth router. You can call it user router. Okay, authrouter.js. Authrouter.js. And let's just create a router. And what I'll do is I'll just copy this router here. Okay. And we'll just leave that home there. Auth router. Okay, and then we'll just say, hey, this router gets used whenever the URL starts with someone register this as middleware in our home router. So router.use /auth router. And we're going to say, oh, wait, no. This would be /auth. That's the path that goes first. And then we pass in the auth router, but I got to import it. So that's what I'm going to do over here. Const auth router equals require /auth router. Okay, because it's in the same folder, so I can just import it that way. And then I register it there. So again, all the routes that this router handles will always start with /auth. So then this one is just /auth, or just /auth, and that's just a test route. Okay, so before I do anything else, I'm going to test that out. Make sure that route is working. Always just do a little bit of code, then test it out. Make sure that what you just did is working. So npm run dev. Okay, so let's open up the browser. Localhost 3000. So does my new router work? So it should show up when I go to /auth. Oh, failed to view path. Okay, let me just think. Oh, because it says res.render. So let's just change this to res.send, because I just want to get the message. Cool, it's working. That's working. I've established that router is working. That's the main thing, so I can go move forward. Now I'm eventually going to bring in a controller, an auth controller, basically a bundle of functions. So let me just think about what I need. Okay. I need my create page. So I need a route for that. So I'm going to think that's going to be router.get. That's because I have to get the page. And that's going to be, I'll just make it auth/create. Again, there's not really as much of a convention here. And we'll just say, we'll have a controller called auth controller, just to kind of stick to the whole auth naming convention. And then we'll call the function, I'll call it get create. Again, there's not much of a convention here, so I'm just thinking of names that are illustrative of what they're doing. Okay, and we'll call this one, this is going to be the create submission. So when we submit and create a new user, so usually a form submission will be a post. So because we're creating something new, so we're going to say /create. Okay, except now it's going to be auth controller dot call it create submit. Okay. And again, I'm getting errors, as you can see in the bottom, because these functions don't exist yet. And until they exist, I'm going to get errors. I'm just kind of laying everything out. So then there is going to be the login page. Router.get /login. So that's going to be like auth/login. And we'll say auth controller.get login. Okay, and then we're going to have the login when we submit the login form. So router.post /login auth controller dot login submit. Okay, and again, I'm getting errors for all of this because I have not created any of those functions. So I got to go make this auth controller. So that way it's not like, where's this thing that you're using? So I'm going to go to my controllers folder, create a new auth.js. Okay, and then we're going to just create a bundle of functions. So if I remember right, we have 4 functions I need to make. And right now I'm not going to worry about the exact logic. I just want to create dummy functions so that way I can make sure that it is working. So if I remember right, the 4 functions were get create, rec res. So I'm creating just dummy functions that just res.send their name. Res.send get create. Okay. And again, this is assuming you have, this video is assuming that you know some stuff about Express. This is not a Express 101 video. But get create, and I'll just, again, it's 4 functions, so I'm just going to paste this. And what I'm going to do is, this is going to be create submit. So then this is going to be submit create. Then this is going to be get login. It really doesn't matter what that says. Okay, and then this is going to be login submit. Okay. Cool. So now that I created these 4 functions, I now have to export them, module.exports. So that way they're all under the same quote-unquote namespace, or really just in the same package. I'm going to bundle them up into an object. So we'll have get create, get login, create submit, and login submit. Okay, pretty obvious that to get the login, the create user form is get create, and then to submit the form is create submit. To get the page with the login form is get login. When you submit the form is login submit. Okay, we're not trying to, like, you know, really kind of hide what we're doing here. So I take this router and I'm going to go import that, or take this controller and import it in my control. Take it over here. So let's import it. So const auth controller equals / controllers / auth. Now it's still giving me an error, so let's examine why. Okay, so probably there's a difference between how I need one of these. Get create, create submit, login submit, get login. One of these doesn't match apparently. So let's just double check. So get create is called get create. Create submit is called create submit. Get login is called get login. And login submit is called login submit. So those names all seem to match. So let's examine here. Maybe I'm missing which one it is. Let's do this. Let me restart the server. Yep, nope. So one of them is not what I think it is. So in that case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to console log auth controller just to make sure that it is what I think it is. I think it's an object with 4 functions. Is it? Auth is not defined. Where is it complaining about that? Where is auth is not defined? It's saying in the auth router, line 10. Oh no, that was just because I was in the middle typing it. It's saying in controllers, auth is where the problem is happening. So let's go to controllers. Where is this error happening? So here we're just defining a function, defining a function, defining a function. Oh, I didn't write the word const. Boy. Const. There we go. It's still. Question is where? According to this stack trace, doesn't refer to any of my specific files. And that console log is still not showing up. So it's still saying that the error is happening in controllers. So that means something here is not right. Res.send, res.send. I'm not actually running any code. Router.get requires a callback function. We've got object undefined. So let's do this. Instead of exporting this right away, I'm going to do this. I'm going to say const actions equals this. So that way I can see this bundle of functions. I want to console.log the actions so I can see the bundle of functions in the console. And then I will just module.exports actions because that is the object filled with functions. Okay, so let's see here. Now let me just go back to the terminal. Where did my terminal go? Back over here. Scroll down. That's strange, because the console log isn't showing up at all. So that means it's erroring before the console log. Get create, get login, login submit. Where // controller / auth.js. Good. Where is it not happy? Because it seems to be complaining about the router because it's saying router.get. And that looks all good. I'm sure it's going to be something really silly. Module.exports is spelled correctly. Let's go to the controller. Module.exports is spelled correctly. Auth router. Did I close the terminal again? I think I did. Let's close these extra terminals. And I'm trying to look through the stack trace to see if I see any of my files being listed with the file name. Routes, here we go. Auth practice routes 16. 16 is the issue. which that doesn't make sense because this is definitely a function. So why does it think that's not a function? Oh, this is an auth router. 16. So it's saying this one is the issue. I don't even see an undefined in my console logs. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to comment out this stuff because that should get rid of the error. We haven't solved the problem, but now I should be able to see some more details. And that is strange because technically I'm still not getting the console log. Oh, wait. I see it right here. That's the issue. That is the console log. I forgot the word require. Oh. That's like twice I've done that today. There we go. See, it's all working now. I was about to really just like staring at it and like, oh, what's going on here? Okay, let me just, there we go. And everything is working. Let me just get rid of all these extra console logs. Good. Okay, so I got all these routes. Again, the routes don't do anything. I can test them now. So I can go to localhost/auth. Well, I got rid of that route. So /create to get create. And if I go to /login, I'm gonna get login. See, so all I did is just create dummy routes just to test it out. That's always a good approach. Just do something simple and small that you can test before you get too deep. Because the deeper you go before you test, the harder it is to claw your way back. Okay. Cool. So now that that's all set, let's just work on these one by one. Let's create a page that will. So let's change this to res.render on our create. Res.render. Okay, and this is going to render. We'll have a folder called auth, and we'll have a folder called create. Okay, and I don't need to send any information to that, so these will be pretty straightforward. So I go to my views, I create a folder, new folder called auth, and I'm going to copy the home EJS so that way I have all the partials already in there. And I'm just going to go into auth, make a new file called create.ejs. And again, these partials, they're just kind of ways of injecting like a pre-made header. So this way you don't have to write the same code for every HTML file. So all those partials are in this partials folder, so that way you can like edit the head tag from there, or edit a footer, the header, whatever. So that way it's the same on every page, without having to recreate the same code 50 times. So really all I want to change is what's inside the main tag. So from here, what I'm going to do is we're going to have a form. And the form's going to have two things. A input of type equals text. And this is going to have a name of username. Placeholder equals username. And that's good. Okay, so and I need just another input like that, so I'll just make a copy of that one, because I need one for password. And then I'm going to need a submit button. So let me just use Alt so I can change both of these at the same time. Password. Okay, and then for this, I don't need name and placeholder. What I do need is to change this to submit and make this value, the value of the submit button, equals submit, or new user. Create user. Now this form, when it's complete, should make a post request to /auth/create, because that's the route I made. And then again, that should be an action. So action equals, and then it should make a post request. So method equals post. So that's what this form will do. It'll make a post request to. Now let's just double check that that's actually working. So what I'm going to do is that go to my submit function, my create submit function, and I'm just going to have it send me back the body. I just want to make sure that I'm actually getting back the body of the form. So I'm going to say, hey, res.json rec.body. Just send that back to me. Let's just make sure that I'm getting what I think I'm getting. So I'm going to go to auth/create the form, except I'm getting an error there. Cannot find the include file partials/head. Okay, must be, guess it must be relative. So in that case, let me go fix that. EJS create. So probably wants me to do this. // Let's try that. // because I have to go outside of the auth folder into the views folder, then back down to the partials folder. So let's see if that makes a difference. Yep, that made the difference. Okay, so cool. So here I can say username Alex Merced, and we'll call this cheese. And then if I hit create user, if this all worked, I should just get JSON data on the next page. That should be the request body, which is just going to be the form data, which is username and password. And that's like what I got. So we're working. Now the only thing, the fix though, is like, see, I can actually see what I typed here. We don't want that. So in my input, I want to change this from a text input to a password input. Because watch what happens. Now if I do this again, this is my username, and then this is my password. See, I get this. And again, the submission's that. But we don't want to just get back that data back. We want to create a new user. But the idea was just, we know that the submit button's working. Again, the idea of testing before you move forward. Do everything in testable steps. Cool. So now let's go back to our controller. And now we can work on our submit function. So what it should do is create a new user, but the password should be hashed. So the first thing we need to do is hash the password with bcrypt. Okay, so what I'm going to do is take the rec.body, and rec.body has a property called password, which I don't want it to be password. I want it to be the hashed password. So what we're going to do is I'm going to make this an async function, because I'm going to need to do some async stuff in here. And what I'm going to do is, first what you need to do is generate a salt. A salt is a sort of like how complicated the resulting hash is going to be, like when it basically jumbles your password into this weird this weird string of numbers and letters. So basically what we do is we're going to do const salt equals, and then I got to bring in bcrypt, so I got to go require bcrypt. So I'm going to go to the top of my file, const bcrypt equals require bcrypt.js. So I'm going to say bcrypt dot, and I want to first generate a salt, and I just choose a number, choose the number 10. That's just what I always go with. And I'm going to await that because that's asynchronous, meaning it's not going to finish right away. So I'm going to say, hey, wait till this thing finishes generating a salt for salting my password before you move forward. Then I will hash the password. So I'll say, hey, what I want the password to equal is I want it to equal the result of bcrypt dot, and it's gonna I want it to hash my password. So I'm gonna pass in the password rec.body.password. Okay, and then I want to pass in the salt, and then that will hash the password. And then now this property will equal the newly hashed password. Okay, and then what I'm going to want to do is create the new user. So const user equals await user.create, and I'll pass in the rec.body because it should have everything I need in there, the username and password. Okay, and once that's created, I'm going to console log the user so we can confirm that the user was created. And then I'm also going to redirect back. Okay, actually I'm not gonna redirect anything. Here's what I'll do. I'll just send it back as JSON because I don't have like a page to send you back to right now. I don't have like, I mean, theoretically I guess I could send you back to the login page. So maybe I should do that. Res.redirect auth/login because this makes sense as what should happen after you do whatever. Okay, and then I want to console.log the user still. Okay, so technically that should do it. Okay, now I'm getting an error, so let's examine what the error is saying. Schema is not a constructor. And I just realized we never imported our user schema, our user, so we have to do that. But look, it figured it out for me. Thank you, VS Code, for being magical like that. Okay, but it's complaining about the way I did this in my user model. Schema, new schema. Schema is a constructor, so why does it not like that? So let me go take a look. DB, I should have exported Mongoose, yes. For some reason, it's not getting what we think it's getting. So let me go back to my user model. Const schema. Oh, because I didn't use the word require. It's the second time I've made that mistake in this video. Oops. There we go. I got to require the thing. Okay, so now let's see. Does that fix the error? Yes, that fixes the error. Now, where's that console log coming from? It must be coming from the controller. Must have not gotten rid of that. Where's my controller? No, I did get rid of the console log there. Is there still a console log in the router? Yep, right there. Let's get rid of that. Cool. So now let's try out this new user form. Okay. So when I submit this, Alex Merced, cheese, it should send me to the login page. So let's see here. And yeah, good. See, it sent me to auth login. Perfect. Now let's see if the console log here shows me the new user. And look, see, there's the new user with the ID from the Mongo database, and then there's the hashed password. Yay! So bcrypt did its job. It hashed the password. Okay. So in this case, now let's create a login page. Okay, a page for logging in. So we already have our route. So let me go to my controller and okay, so here's we have the get login page. So we're just gonna do res dot render auth/login. It's gonna be pretty much the same form, so I can just copy and paste the existing view I already made. So I go back to my views. I will copy my create.ejs, paste it, rename it login.ejs, because again, it's pretty much the same thing. Okay, except this one is going to make a post request to auth/login, and instead of saying create user, it's going to say login. Otherwise, same thing. Okay, so let's just make sure that if I hit refresh on this, do I get this page? There we go. Okay, good. Okay, so that route's working. And then that has the right information to make the right submission. So I just need to make, where's my controller? Here's my controller. So let's just test this out first. We'll just say res.json, the rec.body. Just make sure that the form submission is working and I'm receiving the request body. So if I go here and I type in some stuff and I type in some stuff, and there I am. Okay, I am getting the body. Good. So I'm getting the data from the form. Wonderful. So what I want to do is first determine if there's a user in the database by that name. Okay. So that's going to be step number one. Now this I'm definitely going to want to put in a try catch block to catch any potential errors. Error. I mean, it's catch error. Okay, and I'm going to I'm going to res.json the error. Give me back the error if there's a problem. So first thing I want to do is first see if there's a user by that name in the database. So const user equals user. So let's, and again, I need to make this an async function so I can use await. So async await. And I want to await user dot find, and I want to find the user whose username matches rec.body.username. Okay, now if that user exists, there should be a user there. If not, my user variable should be undefined. So I'm going to say, hey, if user, and again, if user is undefined, that would be treated as false. Okay, else, so if user doesn't exist, that means there is no user by that name. So I'll say res.json error, no user by that name. Okay, and I want it to show up as an error, so I'm going to do dot status, so I can change the status from like a 200 to a 400. So it's an error status. There we go. So that way it's like it'll send back this object as JSON, but it'll also have a 400 status, so that way it looks like an error. Because 200s mean like the request went fine, and in case somebody else is trying to figure out what happened, like 200 is going to make them think that things went okay, but no, they did not. If this is running, it's because we did not find a user under the username that you submitted on the form. So now if we did find a user with that name, now we have to check the password. So then I go const result of hashing the password, or result of comparing the password, or say const result await bcrypt dot compare, and we want to compare. Let me just see here. What's the arguments here? First is the string, and then it's the hash. So the string would be the one that you submitted from the form, so that'd be rec.body.password. And then the hash from the database, so that would be the user we just got from the database, dot password. And we're going to let bcrypt compare whether these two things are the same. Are they the same thing? Are they mathematically the same word? Because again, the one in the database is hashed, the one you typed in the form is not hashed. So I'm going to get like a true or false, or, I'm going to get something. So if I can now do an if result, and if result is true, that means the password is correct. And if not, and if not, then what I can do is just say, hey, password is wrong. So I will just copy the same line from here, because it's still another error. And this time just say the password is wrong. Okay, so you have to go through all these checks. Password is wrong. And then if result is true, meaning there is a result, meaning the password is correct, then what you're going to want to do is say, yeah, you logged in. Okay, so in that case, what we would do is if result, in this case, you are logged in, what I will do is we will create a new property in rec.session, because again, this template already has sessions already created. So if I go over here to like the server.js, session is already configured. So session is already a thing, so I can take advantage of that. And I will store, go back to my auth controller. I can then go in here and just say rec.session.user equals rec.session, no, actually just equals user.username. And if there was other properties, like if I wanted to save like an email or a username or whatever, I could make other properties inside the session object. But I'm just going to say rec.session user equals the username. Cool. And then I'm going to just send back a message, res.json, you are logged in. Message, you are logged in. Okay, cool. Okay, and then I'm going to create one more route. Okay, const logout equals rec.res, so that way we can log out when we want. Trying to remember how you destroy session. Okay, but I think it's like what, rec.session dot. Well, we can just do it this way. We can just say rec.session.user equals undefined. Essentially, we just reset it. Okay. And then res.json message, you have logged out. Okay, and then I'm going to export that function so I can make the logout route. Okay, yep. And then I'm going to go back to my router, add that route. So let's add a logout route. And I'll put the link to this code in the video description, so in case you want to inspect it. Log out, so router dot get, because just this page will just go to. So link you'll just click on it and it'll redirect. Ideally, it would redirect you back to like a main page or back to a login page. And this will be auth controller dot logout. Okay, so good, everything's working. So let's try this out. If I remember right, the username I gave was Alex Merced, and the password was cheese. Well, first let's try logging in unsuccessfully. So let's just say cheese. Cheese was not the username. So if I hit login, okay, I got a blank message. I wonder why. I think that was because we hit the an error. Okay. Let's see what happens if I do it with the right username. Does it work if I use the right username? And I think the right password was cheese. Huh. Still get an error. Let's go back and examine the controller. So let's see here. Login submit, and let me just actually make sure the router is running the right function. Login submit. Okay. So then I go over here, login submit, const user equals await user dot find, and the username should equal the rec.body dot username. If user, and what we'll do is actually I'll also include some console.counts just to make sure like this stuff is actually running. Console.count. That's always a useful thing while you're trying to troubleshoot something. It's like, how far is it getting? Where is the error occurring? Okay. So let's see here. Cheese. I get the blank, but let's take a look at the terminal. 1, 2, so that's 1, 2, but it doesn't make it to 3, which means we're running into an issue here when we compare passwords. Okay. So then the question then becomes, am I using that right? Or let's just actually double check, are these what we think they are? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to console log these two things. Console.log, because maybe the password is not what I think it is. And maybe the user.password isn't what I think it is. So what I'm going to do is go back, type cheese again, hit login. I get that. Let's take a look at the terminal. And we are correct. See, like cheese, we're getting the password, but I'm not getting the user from the the database. Let's take a look as to why. So in that case, now let's just console log the user. Because see, I can see like the password's not what I thought it was. So we'll say user. Let's console log the user, trigger the error again. Like, are we actually getting back the user? And here's why I always make this mistake. I always forget that find gives you back an array. So you see here, I'm trying to access password, but but technically user is an array, and the user is the first property of that array. So what I really want to use is find one. I always do that. Find one, because find one will then return the object. And now this will work. Okay. So first let's just do it with the wrong username again. Cheese. Blah. Okay, there we go. Error. No user by that name. Perfect. Okay, now let's try the wrong password. Alex Merced, but the wrong password. Error, password is wrong. Okay, good. This is working. And now let's try it with the right password. Cheese. You are logged in. Okay, I am logged in now. Perfect. Now let's create a test page that only works if we're logged in. Okay, so we'll just call this const test equals, we'll create the controller first, rec res equals. And essentially with this, what we're going to do here is we're going to say if, because again, we stored the user in session, if rec.session.user, if that's true, that means there's a user there, then we'll respond res.json, you are logged in. And if that's not true, there is no user, res.json, you are logged out. Okay, cool. So we'll just test that out. And actually I have to export that. So let's export that as a function from our controller and then connect that to a route. So we'll call this the test route. It's just the test whether we're logged in or not. Router.get/test. And this is going to be auth controller.test. Okay. So now I had just logged in. See, you are logged in. So let's try this. User log auth.test. And see, it says it still tracks that I'm logged in. So that means that user property in the rec.session is still there. Because that's the whole point of sessions. It keeps track of things between requests. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to log out. So I'm going to go to log out, which resets that user property. So that way it's just undefined. Log out. You have logged out. Now let's see what happens if I go to the test now. It should say that I'm no longer logged in. Okay, cannot get auth. Oh, forgot the slash. Auth/test. I go here. You are logged out. Okay, because see, that property is there. So basically logging in, make sure that there's something in that user property. Now here's the thing. I could theoretically make every route going forward just have this like this if statement, so that way only the pages that you're supposed to be logged into you have access to. But there's a simpler way of doing that. Okay, what I could do is create a middleware. Okay, so what I will do, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna first edit the function test, and instead this function will just res.send. So we're gonna end up in the same place, but we're gonna say res.send, you are logged in. Now what if I want to do like 100 pages? Like what if I'm going to make like 30 different routes? Do I really want to put an if statement on whether the user is logged in on every single route? I don't have to do that. That's the beauty of custom middleware. So in my auth router, because this is ideally actually I probably should do it in my home router, so that way it applies to. Well, you could do it in different places. I'll do it in my auth router. Okay. I'm going to create a function. And actually, I'm not going to register it as middleware for this route. So I'm just going to write a function. We'll just write a function. Okay. And actually, I should probably write it in its own file. So that way, if you wanted to use it in other routers, you could. It's, not stuck in one file. So what I will do is, where would be a good place? I guess I just put it in the main folder. So in the main folder, we'll create a new file, and we'll just call this my auth middleware, auth.js, and all this is a function. So I'm going to do module.exports. I'm not going to even bother naming the function. I'm just going to just send out a function. So this function is rec_res. And what this rec_res next, because again, middleware always is rec_res then next. That's how middleware works. Rec_res next. And essentially what all I want to do is just check, okay, if rec.sessions, if rec.session.user is truthy, then next, just move on. Else, res.json, message, not logged in. And that's it. I have now this function, and I can import it into any controller where I want to use it. So in this case, in my auth controller, I will import, not my controller, my routes. So I will import this middleware. So the top of my routes, auth router, I will import the auth middleware. So const auth equals require dot dot slash, that's a string, dot dot slash auth. And now that I have this function. And now I can say, hey, I want, you can actually specify middleware per route. So the only route I want to actually check for authentication, that I want to check for authorization, is actually really on this one. So what I'll do is I just do auth, and what it does, it'll run this function before it runs this function. So see, you can do middleware at the global level by registering the middleware with the application object in server.js. You could do router middleware by doing like router.use inside a particular router. And you can even do route level middleware, where I can just specify the middleware like this and just say, okay, these are the particular routes where I want you to use the auth middleware. And what this auth middleware is doing is just checking, are they logged in? So now it should tell me I'm still logged out. See, not logged in. But then if I go log in again, log in, I'll go log in, Alex Merced, cheese. See, now I'm logged in. Now if I go back to test, it should work again. You are logged in. Okay? Because, again, the session is keeping track of that user property, and if I go to log out, it zeroes it out. And if I log in, it adds the user as that user property. And then my middleware, for the routes that I added that auth middleware to, it checks to see, is the user property there? And if it is, just waves them by and says, hey, go to the main function. And if not, it just sends back the response, you're not logged in. So that's how you do auth. Basically, going forward, I would just then add this middleware to any routes that I want to apply auth to. And it's as simple as that. Now, let's say later on I have like blog posts, and the blog posts belong to each user. What I'd probably do is take that rec.session.user object and pull the username from there, so that way I can add the username to that particular thing. Because maybe I'll create blog post. Blog post will have like a title. It'll have like the body of the blog post, and they'll have a property for like username. So that way I know which blog posts belong to which users. That's one way to do it. However you want to do it. There's a bajillion different ways to kind of get to the same end result, but this is how you create that login feature. And that's how you say, hey, certain pages can only be accessed when you're logged in using like this auth middleware. Okay, and you say, hey, I want only, out of all these routes, I only want this route to be password protected, to be behind the login wall. Okay, so that's that. My name is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com. Have a great day and enjoy.